I'm Standing on a Million Lives is about a group of middle schoolers who are periodically transported to an alternate world by a person in the future to perform some sort of quests, because it's basically a fantasy world with goblins and magic and stuff like that. We don't really know the purpose of these quests. We do at one point get a bit of a flash forward of to what it's all leading to, but Season 1 doesn't really get into the details of the purpose of all of this. When they finish a quest, whoever is basically the MVP of solving the quest is permitted to ask the game master, which is the person from the future, a singular question. So they finish, Season 1 gets us to the end of the third quest. So actually, I think Season 1 finishes Quest 4. So we're really being drip-fed information. It's also worth noting, our main character doesn't actually join until Quest 3. So the amount of information the characters have is currently very limited. So there's a lot of questions that this season brings up. The characters themselves, while they're going through this fantasy world, have their own sort of like a gamified stats. Like there's a respawn timer based on the number of people, and they all have job classes, and they can't use any equipment that isn't specifically assigned to their job classes. However, the monsters in the world and we'll call them NPCs for the time being, that they encounter in the world are not limited at all, and they function a lot more cohesively. The season does explain why this is, but I actually don't want to spoil this one, so I will leave that out. But I will say that the answer I found predictable, but not in a way that it takes away from the story itself. I think it was a predictable twist that added to the mythos that the story is portraying. The big draw for the show, I think, is probably the party and the interactions it has with the NPCs. None of the dynamics are particularly great, but I wouldn't particularly say that any of the characters are specifically boilerplate either. There's clearly some underdevelopment in the main characters, the main like four leads of the anime. But there's definitely room for and already signs that they're starting to develop. The one that's most focused on is our male lead, who has a sort of twisted personality and a philosophy that's a little hard to fully understand because he considers everyone beneath him, but also he's beneath everyone else. And he said he'd sacrifice his life for anyone, but also he would basically sacrifice anyone for him. So I'm not sure I fully understand his philosophy, but he definitely has that sort of pragmatist personality. He is willing to abandon his party members due to the respawn mechanic. And he, at one point, like, sets a dude on fire. So he's got sort of that anti-hero type, antisocial personality. Very, very sort of like classic incel-y type thing, but a big point of the show is watching him sort of come out of his shell and develop as a person, while we're also watching the personality flaws of the other characters, probably except for the blonde, also be worked on and developed as they also come out of their shells and probably learn to be better people, although we don't really know the motivations of Game Master at this point. The end of the season also introduces that there will be a fifth party member going into season 2, but there's not a lot of details other than they have some sort of association with the Yakuza. Regardless, Season 1 manages to establish a very interesting baseline that I am looking forward to seeing where Season 2 develops. Twitch and Discord in the description. I've been Sacrobolic, your Envoy of Hope. Bye-bye!